Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Jarrell Mason, aka Jay Mason. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Album Cover, where we get inside the entertainment industry with those in the know and give them their flowers while they're here to be celebrated. With me right now, I have my good friend from north of the border. We collaborated on an episode on Dope Nostalgia Podcast a couple of months back, and I had to repay the favor and have her on Beyond the Album Cover. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big thank you and round of applause to my girl Naomi. Naomi, thank you for coming on Beyond the Album Cover. And how are you?
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Jarrell. It's
Yeah,
great. I'm doing wonderful.
great. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on this podcast and talk shop about music, pop culture, and everything else in between.
That's my favorite topic.
All right. So
Anything to do with the 90s, that's for sure.
yeah, we love the 90s. We still stuck there and we ain't never going back. But no disrespect to the other decades though. But 90s has a special place in our hearts. So let's jump right on in. Where were you born and what was your first experience in pop culture fandom?
Okay, well, I was born in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where I still live to this day. Um, and I actually took me a while in my childhood to get into pop culture because of the fact that we were raised in a very strict Christian household. Most of the music that I was allowed to listen to was either super easy listening or gospel hymns or like pretty strict like Christian music until like at that time I was told, oh, don't listen to Madonna and Michael Jackson, they're bad. you know, that
Mm,
was the way I was kind of raised. But then when I started getting into elementary school and I thought I'm hearing what everybody else is listening to and how much fun they're having with like pop music and rock music. Everyone's getting into like Bon Jovi and like there was a big band here called Glass Tiger up in Canada. I remember kids just having all their tapes and stuff, and I'm like, well, I really like this music. Um, I finally was able to get my first cassette that I got to pick out for myself in 1987, and that was the original Tiffany album, which I have up there on the wall.
wow.
But that's the vinyl version of it. But it was my first cassette where I could call my own.
Wow. And Tiffany
So that's where it all
experienced,
started.
yeah, and Tiffany experienced a resurgence thanks to Stranger Things with I Think We're Alone Now, vaulting her streams up. And I know Tiffany is very appreciative of the Duffer Brothers.
She sure is. Yeah, it's good. I like to see her highlighted. It makes me happy to see attention brought to her because she's a fabulous singer and an incredible songwriter too. So I'm always happy to see Tiffany out there doing her thing.
Yeah, and she paid her dues too because she performed at malls. So back in the day, for those that don't know about malls, they used to have a stage in the center of the mall, and you would get an artist to perform while you're trying to sit in the food court and have your Orange Julius or your Sbarro's pizza or whatever fast food you were eating while you were waiting for your mom to come out of some clothes store. And it was where she made her bones.
Yep. And that's true. That's malls was a big thing. We had our rivals, the pretend rivalries too. Um Tiffany and Debbie Gibson. They were the two at the time that was the rivalry.
Mm.
Although if you ask them, they had no rivalry or issues with each other. It was just that they were kind of pitted against each other by the media and by the record companies and whatnot, right?
Yeah, you gotta
It's a good way
love
to sell more albums.
Yeah, you gotta love that media generated rivalry. It sells records and it gives buzz in all the press and magazines. And you mentioned Edmonton, Alberta, and I cannot go without mentioning Edmonton, Alberta. For those that don't know, if you're not up on your NHL, the Edmonton Oilers, where the great one, Wayne Gretzky, Grant Fuhrer, Mark Messier, won multiple cups of Lord Stanley, and then Wayne Gretzky got traded to the LA Kings, and Edmonton was sick when that happened.
It was pretty devastating if you were there at the time. I remember being like little, always asking my mom questions walking home from school. I'd be like, Mom, is there ever going to be a day when they trade Wayne Gretzky? And she'd say, No, he's here forever. And so I'd always thought that. And when you grow up with a hockey dynasty like that in your city, and that's all you know, that all we do is win, 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 no matter what, it kind of it broke everyone's heart, really. Although it is important to say that the Edmonton Oilers did win another Stanley Cup after Wayne Gretzky was traded shortly after. So it wasn't like they were nothing without him, but it hurt.
Yeah, almost kind of like when LeBron made his decision to leave Cleveland the first time and go to Miami, because I believe prior to Wayne Gretzky getting traded, hockey, at least in the US, was more of a regional sport where in the Midwest and then the northeastern part of the US. And when he got traded to the Kings, it was all about making it more accessible to a wider audience here in the States because hockey at that time was still regional, but Wayne Gretzky, at least in the US, made hockey more glamorous, kind of like what happened when Magic Johnson got drafted by the Lakers, and suddenly everybody wanted to go to a Laker game. And when Gretzky came to town, everybody wanted to go to a Kings game.
That was the plan to broaden the NHL in the US. And I think it worked. Although Wayne never won another Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it definitely did. You know, the Hartford Whalers ended up relocating to my home state, North Carolina, became the Carolina Hurricanes, won the Stanley Cup in '06. So I pretty much think that Gretzky coming down south did numbers. Now, you mentioned Tiffany was the first cassette that you got. Now, was it where the
mhm.
price of the cassette, was it a little bit more because it was a import from the States, or was it about comparable to what probably a price for a cassette was in a US record store?
The good thing about music for the most part is it would be comparable. It was just as accessible as it was in the US. Our release dates were the same for new music. There are the odd releases that came out that I had to get in the US, but for the most part, Canada is on top of it in the music game and the record store game. And our big record stores at the time were like A&M Music, Music World, and HMV, which is actually I think originally out of England, but HMV was the biggest music store in Canada throughout the 90s and early 2000s until they folded here.
Man, RIP record stores, you know, used to that was one of the things I used to look forward to going to Camelot Music, which was the primary record store in my hometown area, and looking through the cassette rack and the CD rack to see the new releases and what's coming out and everything. It was just a time. Now, as far as the music scene in Canada, was there a big difference as opposed to the Canadian music acts and when American music acts would come up to Canada, or were they pretty much taking their cues from what was going on in the States and adding their own spin to it?
Well, when it comes to international acts visiting Canada, I found that we did get to see quite a few of them. But in Canada, it being such a massively huge country physically, a lot of the times and to this day, the only tour dates would be Toronto, Montreal, and maybe Vancouver. So if you live anywhere in any other of the cities in between in the prairies, you'd be really lucky to get one of your favorite artists out. But they did. They would show up. Um, and I think it's cool because a lot of times they put on like an Oilers jersey when they play here, like stuff like that, like to make it special. But it's a very hard thing to physically tour this country because of the size. And our dollar was much better back in the day, but now the Canadian dollar compared to the American dollar is not in a good place either. So it's expensive for them to come here too.
Mhm. Yeah, so the whole thing with the touring, and you mentioned how large of country Canada is, that if you're not in between those three locales, you'll be SOL seeing your favorite act. So you better hope that somebody got a bootleg tape passing around, or Much Music was recording the concert and you can catch it on TV.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of our information from Much Music. We also had like back in the day, magazines would have like pen pal sections. So you would make friends in the US or in different countries and like exchange VHS tapes,
Yeah.
send each other magazine articles and things that you couldn't get in your country. And that was kind of the way to get your hands on stuff too. So I remember getting like bootleg videos that were overdubbed of my favorite artists from everywhere else just through the mail.
Wow. Yeah. The good old days where you
That was my
go to
social media.
it was social media before social media. You'll look through the list and say, hey, so and so has a bootleg episode of Soul Train or blah, 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 or this exclusive tape, and you work it out from
Mhm.
there. Now, what was it like when you first saw Much Music for the first time? And what would you say would be the differences and similarities between Much Music and MTV?
Jarrell, when we first got Much Music is when my family got cable for the first time. And I think I was about 11, 10 or 11 years old. And it changed my life because before that in Canada, we had a couple music video shows that would air on CBC. There was like Good Rockin' Tonight. There was video hits that came on daily, and that was it. So it changed my life to have 24/7 music programming. The VJs were so much fun and like just all the new music videos coming out. You got to see them the day they arrived, just like you would on MTV. But we only heard about things on MTV through magazines, through watching maybe shows like Entertainment Tonight that would tell us about MTV
Mhm.
because we didn't get it yet. So to compare the two, I think they were very similar for the fact VJs existed, brand new video releases, like charts, top 20 video charts for the week were a thing. But Canadian also Canada has a policy. We have a regulating a federal bureau. They're called the CRTC, and they regulate how much Canadian content is played on the air, whether it
Mhm.
be radio or television.
Mhm.
And they demand that all broadcasting networks play a certain amount of Canadian content. Because of that, we got a lot of Canadian artists that were big here that were never big in the States.
Oh, really? Like
And
who?
that bureau still exists.
Okay. Like who? Who are some of the Canadian artists that you heard a lot of who never cracked it stateside?
There was Love and Sass. They were an amazing R&B duo. Um, Before Alanis Morissette was big, she was big in Canada with her two pop albums, and so that was a big deal. But it was really hard for people to crack the US back then. There's so many groups like World on Edge, West End Girls. Um, a lot of these people I've had as guests on the show too, so that's really cool. But
Mhm.
when our artists cracked the US, it would be a huge deal and we would be really excited and supportive of them because it was really hard to do back then. Now I feel like there's a lot more Canadians in the industry
Right.
worldwide.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like you mentioned, at least back during those days, it was tough for international acts to break through in the US because everybody was looking at if I could break in the US market, I know I'm going to be good, which I think looking in hindsight, well, Brian Adams had already had massive success here in the States with Summer 69, Cuts Like a Knife, earlier records. But when he did Everything I Do It For You for Robin Hood soundtrack, and there was the number one song of '91 that really put him into overdrive here in America.
Huge. So he was one of the biggest ones at the time who broke over. Celine Dion was one of them at that time too. Alanis later in the 90s, of course. Alana Miles had a big hit with Black Velvet. Um, there's a lot of Canadians who did make it happen. And then when you think like even way back, way earlier, Anne Marie, Paul Anka, those guys were making it big in the US too.
Wow.
So it could happen, but it was rare.
Wow. And you mentioned Alanis Morissette, and I had just discovered recently her poppy side and listening to some of those records and looking at the videos, it was felt like she was going in a more Paula Abdul direction because here in the States, we only got to know her once Jagged Little Pill hit. And we were like, oh, she's always like that. But then looking at the earlier stuff, I'm like, oh, teeny bopper. But if you think about it, she came from the world of kids TV because she was on one of the greatest Canadian imports to ever come on Nickelodeon. You can't do that on television.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's where the slime started. Getting
Yeah.
slime started from that show.
And I believe,
So, um,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say about Alanis too. I loved her pop music. I was a big fan of it. I got to meet her at a local radio station when I was a kid because my friends and I, we actually hosted a show on our Power 92 station in Edmonton, which was our top 40 station on Sunday mornings. So one of the DJs at the station told me Alanis was coming and when she was going to be there for her interview. So I came there to meet her. And she was probably 16 or 17 at the time. And it was just really cool. I didn't get the picture taken with her, but I did get her. Actually, it's right here. I did get her to sign my cassette.
Oh, I must see that. Please show that to the people.
So it was in pen, so it's faded, but you can barely see where she
Wow.
wrote her name. I don't know if you can see that right on her cheek there.
Yeah,
So the message
vaguely,
above it was,
vaguely.
to Naomi, it was nice meeting you. Love, Alanis. It's really hard to see because it was in pen. I wasn't very prepared for this meeting.
No,
Should have had a
that's
Sharpie.
quite all right. Now, while I was saying when you're talking about Atlantis, and you can't do that on television, I believe Are You Afraid of the
Mhm.
Dark was a Canadian import, 15 Canadian import, which also aired on Nickelodeon. It was Ryan Reynolds' debut acting. I believe Ryan Gosling's from Canada as well.
He sure is. Yeah, Gosling was on a show. This was a little younger than me, so I wasn't aware of what they were doing because this was more in like the late 90s, early 2000s, right?
Mm,
Ryan
yeah,
Gosling, oh, I
yeah,
thought he was on
Ryan
Breaker
Gos
High or something.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if he was on any other show prior to him coming on Mickey Mouse Club, because that's how at least I came to know him from MMC, and then he later did Young Hercules.
Yeah, the only way we got Mickey Mouse Club, the Disney Channel, was if you had a satellite
Oh,
dish back then. So I remember
oh,
I babysat for someone who had a satellite dish, and that's the only time I could watch Mickey Mouse Club. And that was
um,
when the party was on it.
yeah, yeah, the
Do
party
you
they
remember
were.
the party?
Yeah, I had a chance to interview Chase Young back in the day and listen to a lot of the party's material. So dope and is when you think about it in hindsight, all the talent that came out of MMC. I mean, Max Costello and the other casting directors knew what they were doing when they were picking the kids.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it was a wonderful show. And it's like two generations of pop stars came out of that. Not only was it the party, but then some of the party members were still on the show, got a little bit older. And then you had Brittany, Christina, JC, Justin, Ryan, like all these people, right? For
Hmm.
the next round of big stars.
Hmm. And
But
another,
like
go
I
ahead.
said, we only heard about them through magazines and stuff.
Yeah, so
That was how we couldn't watch the show unless you had a satellite.
Yeah, so with you saying the only way you saw Disney Channel was via satellite, you mentioned magazines were the way that you would get stateside content. What were some of the other methods that you guys would use to get content from the States that wouldn't be readily available in Canada?
Mostly magazines. There were some syndicated radio shows that aired on our stations, like Rick Dees in the Weekly Top 40, Shadow Stevens, American Top 40, John Garabedian and the Open House Party. Those shows were available to us. So that helped. That's where I was hearing a lot more R&B because there wasn't as much R&B in Canadian radio as there was in the States. So I got really addicted to like New Jack Swing through like shows like that.
Oh, nice.
I mean, Michael Jackson became New Jack Swing too, and Janet as well. Um, and so we got that. But some of the like artists that maybe weren't as well known on Canada airwaves, I would hear on those syndicated shows.
Mhm. Yeah, you mentioned that through those syndicated shows, you got exposed more to R&B. Would you say, at least at that time, Canadian radio was more top 40 centered and really didn't cater to the urban demographic in Canada that lists like MCJ, Cool G, Michi Me, a lot of those other acts, where it's like in the States, we love R&B and rap. We got a channel called BET that plays nothing but that, and it really wasn't that same type of representation in Canada.
No, it took a little bit longer for it to get here. Excuse me. A little bit longer for it to get here, I felt. We had a lot of cool Canadian R&B and hip hop artists, obviously Chocolare, Maestro Fresh West, Michi Me, like you mentioned, Kish. There was a lot of them. and they were coming up and doing their thing too. And because of like obviously content rules, we got to hear so much more of them, which was amazing. Like Organized Rhyme, Swollen Members, all of these great hip hop acts were here.
Mm,
But like I said, a lot of it might have been a little bit slower with the without watching those TV shows. But Much Music did a good job of representing US and international hip hop and rap too later on because they had shows like Rap City, Extendamix, um, a lot more focus on R&B and hip hop came with those shows. So it was wonderful. I just think, like you said, like our local radio was very top 40 pop rock for a long time, but I was able to get all the R&B and new jack that I wanted from Much Music, which I
mhm.
didn't get till we got cable. So this is
Right.
where that all comes into play.
Right,
Yeah.
because listening to Maestro Fresh West, I'm listening to him. I'm like, oh, you can tell this guy probably studied Big Daddy Kane, and you listen to Meet You Me, like, oh, they're definitely listening to what's going on in the States, and then adding their own spin and flavor to it, which was what I thought was so great when you hear, at least from an American standpoint, an international spin on what's popular in the U.S., and you get to hear like, oh.
Hmm.
Okay, this is their spin on what New Jack Swing is, or pop, or whatever, what have you. They're just taking cues from us, but just putting a little bit of seasoning on it.
You know what though? It also is regional because, like I said, this is a big country. Out east in Toronto, I think hip hop and R&B was flourishing more than it was out here in the prairies, where country music, rock music, and pop music were much stronger on airwaves.
Hmm,
That could be something to do with it too,
hmm,
because I didn't get the local Toronto feeds of anything, right?
hmm,
I think that like because like Drake, think about Drake. Drake came from Toronto.
hmm,
Degrassi was out there too. All of those things were created in Toronto. So we didn't have a lot of representation from Alberta in music.
hmm. Yeah, and now that you think about it, Toronto, at least from the way that you're explaining it, as far as being the center of Canadian culture, to me, kind of feels like New York, while the prairies kind of has more of a Midwest US vibe.
Yeah, especially then, I would say so. I want to be careful too because I don't want to represent the whole entire country with everything I'm saying.
Oh no, no.
But this was just the way I had seen things from my point of view as a kid growing up in Edmonton.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, Vancouver is a hot spot for music too. I can't won't leave out Vancouver because it definitely was as well. A lot of big artists came out of Vancouver.
Oh
So,
my.
and Vancouver is also where a lot of our TV and movie industry lies in this country. It's used by many American shows as a place to film.
Yep. Yep. Definitely that, since a lot of states gave away that tax break for movies to film in their states. A lot of US productions go north of the border.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Now,
I mean, I think growing up in Canada, with media, the media we had was a similar experience. It's just certain things that you may ask me about, and I'll be like, I don't even know what that was. There's a
right.
boy band that had a TV show, not Together. I know who Together is.
Mm.
Um, it was another one that came after that, who I have never even heard of, but they had a TV show too. See, I can't even remember their name right now.
Were they
Comes
US
to me later.
based? Were they US based?
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
can't really think of who you're talking about.
Boy band TV.
I'll probably be able to tell you if you can tell me more later about that. Now, with Degrassi, how big of a phenomenon was
Big
Degrassi when it hit?
Degrassi was a part of our everyday lives. Um, it started with the kids of Degrassi Street. It was shown on CBC because I think at some point Degrassi moved from CBC to CTV, which is our other one of our other big Canadian networks. But it was kids of Degrassi Street. Those kids grew up into Degrassi Junior High. Degrassi Junior High evolved into Degrassi High. And after that, I think there was a long time period before the new Degrassi came out, the one that got big in the US.
Yeah, Degrassi, the next
But I
generation.
do think Degrassi, Next Generation, thank you. I was too old. I wasn't watching that at that point. I don't know. I was doing other stuff. But that's the one that Drake was on.
Yep. Yep, that's how I became to know of Drake because the next generation Degrassi aired on the N or Noggin in the States. And a lot of the older Degrassi episodes I remember also being aired on PBS in the States as well. I remember it was one episode where they had to edit some of the portions out because while it wasn't controversial in Canada, it was controversial here in the US.
Right. Degrassi, especially in their high school episodes, dealt with a lot of controversial topics that were very taboo. They dealt with
Mm,
abortion, AIDS, um, just stuff that was really scary for people to talk about. But I think they did a good job talking about it, and
mm,
it was important, and it made a lot of people realize what was going on in the world at a young age to try to protect them from these things, and also it's Big Time Rush.
oh yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah.
the name of the band I was looking for.
Yeah,
Big
big
Time
time
Rush.
rush. And one of the cool things about Degrassi is that with it having so many generations, is that you can weave storylines from high to next generation to the next spinoff. So to kind of get the generations that watched and grew up on Degrassi invested into the show and make it more of a family thing where my mom watched Degrassi, I watched the next generation, and we can make it a family thing.
Yeah, and some of the same characters were still on the Next Generation. They were there
Mhm.
as teachers and parents and stuff. So, you know, it's a huge Canadian institution.
Definitely beloved. I want to get your take. What was it like the first time you heard and saw New Kids on the Block?
Well, um, it was a friend of mine named Jessica, and she was really into them. And it was around the time of Hangin' Tough, and Step by Step had just come out. So I was a little late to the party because they were already a huge phenomenon. And then she got me into them. Her favorite guy was Jordan, and then I took a liking to Jordan. Um, And I remember telling well, all our little sisters all of a sudden got into it too. And I hope it was I hope that they didn't feel pressured because we were doing it, but I feel like the little sisters wanted to be like the big sisters, so they were loving New Kids too, and it was really cute. Um, but yeah, we were obsessed. I was buying magazines like Teen Beat, Bop, all of that constantly to get all the newest posters and pinups. You could order merchandise, New Kids merchandise from like the backs of the magazines too. So I remember getting a little Jordan Knight pennant. And their merchandise was everywhere. Even in Canada, we had New Kids merchandise at different retailers that you could go shopping at. So you didn't just order it over the magazine. Like you could actually go to a store here too and get New Kids stuff.
Mm,
But the one time they played my city was in 1991, 90 or 91. It was the No More Games tour. And both Jessica and I couldn't get tickets and we weren't allowed to go. So we saw the New Kids on the news that they were in our city and we watched it at our house and we cried because we couldn't go. But man, did I ever well, I got my mom. My mom must have really hated them at the time because I would be begging for all the New Kid stuff I could get, honestly. But it's funny growing up now. Now she loves Donnie Wahlberg because she loves Blue Bloods. So
yeah,
I'm like, that's the guy you spent all that money on.
yeah. Hopefully you didn't risk it all and try to dial the 1-900 number.
Oh, I definitely dialed the. I got in trouble for that one. I definitely would call the 1-900 number
I
for
bet,
sure. I did.
yeah, I bet you and other girls did having the parents have a sky high phone
Hmm.
bill. Why do I have a high bill for 1-900-909-5 kids? Don't call the number,
Yeah,
people.
we
It
weren't
doesn't
supposed to be
work.
doing that. We had the New Kids cartoon on. We had that because we had cable by then, so it was on ABC Saturday mornings. I would have the girls come sleep over and we'd watch the cartoon. Then we'd pop in the New Kids Hanging Tough live VHS, and just sit there and swoon and eat cereal. And it was just a really fun part of childhood.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely was that because I
Hmm.
remember being a little kid, 5, when Step by Step came out. I still have the original Step by Step VHS tape that they put out back in the day, and remember seeing their videos all the time on Video Soul, because a lot of people don't know, new kids, they were signed to the R&B music division at Columbia Records, and they were originally marketed as an R&B group, and they did an independent version of Please Don't Go Girl that only aired on BET and other urban video outlets. But by the time the pop radar got put on them, that's when they shot the better video at Coney Island. Now, when I interviewed Danny some years ago on my radio show, I asked him about that. He was saying that they were almost about to get dropped by Columbia, but a pop station in Florida started playing Please Don't Go Girl on his own because I guess one of the DJs saw it on BET. And once it started getting spins, that's when the record label got wind and started to pump more money into them. And we see the success and the phenomenon of new kids that they became.
Exactly. There's that aspect to it, as well as it that they became Tiffany's opening act on her tour.
Hmm.
And quickly that changed where she ended up being the opening act.
Yep. Today's price is not yesterday's price. And Tiffany found that out when they had to flip flop because they were coming to see them. And I think by the time when they were done with their set, half the audience was walking out. They just
Yeah, I
had so
really
much
felt for
thing.
her.
Oh, yeah.
I felt for her. That would be a really hard thing to encounter. But looking back at it, I think it's quite obvious it's because this was music that girls were really into. They loved her and
Hmm.
they loved them. But then the girls started loving the boys so much that they almost got jealous about it,
Hmm.
you know?
Yep.
So what can you do? Young teenage girls, right? We think,
Yep.
oh, one day we're going to marry that guy.
Hmm. And that's your built-in
But
demo
I've been
that,
blessed.
yeah,
I've been
yeah.
blessed because in my adulthood, since COVID, I've got to have a lot of those opportunities with the new kids on the block that I would have, as a 12-year-old, never imagined would have happened to me. Like, for once, when New Kids got back together in 2008 and they came to play here, Jessica and I finally went to that show. I said, it's got to be you and me because we missed the last time they were here. And we had a wonderful time reuniting and seeing the New Kids for real. Lady Gaga, Natasha Bedingfield both opened those shows too, and it was fantastic.
Wow.
But since COVID, I've gotten to go on two New Kids on the Block cruises. I've gone to two tours and their Vegas residency, and even BlockCon, which was an awesome event. So I just feel blessed because I've also made so many friends. A lot of us ladies who are big fans are now have a tight knit friendship group, you know. So all these things are about going to see each other,
Yeah.
as you know, and the New Kids being the icing on the cake.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about a lot of these legacy acts like New Kids, New Edition, Backstreet Boys, Boys to Men, that you have generations of fans that grew up with these acts and you got to see the transition of them from kids to young adults to men to senior men, and you got to go through those stages with them, and you make lifelong bonds with fans because you probably run into people at different shows and you're saying, hey, I remember you when you was at this show or blah blah blah. So it's more of a
Yeah.
family reunion slash meeting up with your college friends that you haven't seen in a while.
And the New Kids on the Block have done something very smart and they've packaged these tours with other artists of the same time.
Mhm.
Excuse me. I had a little tickle in my throat today. They've packaged these tours with Paula Abdul, Boys to Men, 98 Degrees, Rick Astley, Salt and Peppa, Tiffany, Debbie Gibson, all these mixtape tours and total package tours. It's so smart because we are fans of all of those artists of that era. And to get people all together to see them, I think is a great idea.
Yeah, definitely. I got a chance to see the mixtape tour when they came to Vegas with Tiffany, Debbie Gibson, Salt and Pepper, Naughty by Nature. And like you said, everybody was listening to all those acts that was on the bill. So it made perfect sense for everybody to be on this tour at the same time. And the one thing that I'm waiting on, New Kids, New Edition. I need that in my life before I leave God's good green earth. New Kids and New Edition. I would need that because we kind of got a hint of it when we saw the Battle of Boston at the AMAs a couple years ago. And I
Mhm.
know at least from the outside looking in for New Kids, it was such a full circle moment for them to be on stage with New Edition, given the ties between both groups with Maurice Starr, knowing the legacy that both groups have had on pop and R&B, and that the influence is still felt to this day.
I really think that the New Edition, New Kids thing is going to happen, whether it's a tour, whether it's maybe a few nights only at a certain spot, a venue. I think they're going to do something, but it'll just take a matter of time to find out what, because I know that in my heart, I think everybody in for those two groups would be for it and want to do it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely would be something to see in New Edition getting ready to go on tour, the New Edition Way tour with them, Tony Braxton, Boys to Men, going out on the road, doing their thing, and it's gonna be something to see because whenever New Edition comes to your town, it's gonna be a great show.
And I live in Canada and they never come here.
Yeah,
That's why
yeah.
I keep going down there. But one of the cool things is I was in Boston for my first time in November, and I wanted to take a tour and see a lot of the places that were part of New Kids on the Block and New Edition coming up. So in Roxbury, we went to the location of the House of Hits,
Oh,
and
Maurice Starr
that
studio?
is the building. Yes, and that is the. It looks like an apartment building.
Hmm.
It probably was an apartment building. Um, and there is a plaque on the outside wall of the building that basically designates it as a historical landmark. It's calling it the House of Hits, Marie Star, home of New Edition and New Kids on the Block. It's
Wow,
on the building, and I got great pictures of it and stuff. So I thought it was really cool to see that and all the other sites. And I got
amazing.
to see the New Edition street, like the actual street that recently became a
Hmm.
street sign,
Hmm. Wow, that
also
is
there.
so,
So
so
yeah,
dope.
it was a great trip.
So dope. Definitely gonna have my way, make my way up to Beantown to do a New Kids New Edition pilgrimage, check all the old haunts out and everything like that. And it's crazy, like when you think about it, like I said, their legacy, their influence still being felt to this day. And we mentioned Backstreet Boys earlier and how when they came out, a lot of people were looking at them as new kids wannabes, new kids knockoffs. And I believe it was Canada who started the buzz for Backstreet Boys in the States because they had their international only album blowing up. That was when they did the ski resort version of I'll Never Break Your Heart that you only saw on Much Music. This was before they did the stylish five-level layer apartment video US version that was directed by Billy Woodruff, and how once Backstreet Boys Buzz started buzzing in Canada, that was when the fuse was lit for them to blow up here in their home country in the US.
I'm always impressed with how much you've done your homework. Like that is perfect. Yes, they were big in Europe first, and then that buzz started to catch on in Canada. The first video I saw of theirs on Much Music was "Get Down," and I was in, I think I was 19 at the time, maybe,
Mhm.
and I watched this 18, 19, and I'm watching this thing going, who do these guys think they are? Oh, they think they're New Kids on the Block. Okay, right. So I kind of
Mhm.
was like passive about it, whatever. But then they started to grow on me, and I loved the music, and I just became real hardcore into Backstreet too. So
Right.
yeah, they blew up in Canada first, and I had no idea that they weren't as big in their home country at that time
Mm-mm.
until
No,
later.
no,
Yeah,
no. So let me set it up for you. So the reason why they had to go to Europe first was because you got to think about it. When they were formed in 93 in the US, New Kids had faded out, grunge, rap really started breaking through mainstream. So it really wasn't pop friendly here, radio wise, in the US. But over in Europe, because of the success of Take That, E17, Bros, made it more accessible for pop. So that's why both Backstreet Boys and NSYNC had to go to Europe first, cut their teeth.
Mm.
And then because in 97, that was when the turn happened here in the US with Hanson and Spice Girls coming over, making pop more accessible and ready for the US again. And it was just perfect timing for them to come back home.
I feel like that decade was bookended by awesome pop music. You know what I mean? Like you had grunge and everything else happened in the middle, but like all the best pop acts were like at the beginning of the 90s and the end of the 90s.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely
But
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah, and also too, Ace of Base, I believe, was probably responsible for that as well because The Sign is still the only song by an international act to be number one on Billboard's year-end chart in the US, number one song of '94, and that was huge. And all the stuff that came out of the Sharon Studios pop era with Max Martin, rest in peace, Dennis Pop, and the stuff that they did with Robin and 3T, early
yeah.
Backstreet Boys, early NSYNC, and it was just a great time, at least over on that side of the world for pop. And then, like I said, '97, that was when pop became chic again here in America.
Thank you for mentioning Ace of Base and Robin because I have to say when I meant like the middle of the decade, that is when they were prevalent. Prevalent, is that the word I'm
Yeah,
looking for?
prevalent.
But yeah, that's when they were huge. And
Hmm.
Ace of Base was very big in Canada as well.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and
I
with
had
rock.
Jenny on the show. She's lovely,
Oh, really?
wonderful,
Wow.
wonderful. Yeah.
Amazing. And listening to Robin, like her early material, very pop R&B, because I remember seeing her on Soul Train doing Do You Know What It Takes, all that, Show Me Love. And it kind of felt like she did what Pink did, where I'm gonna do R&B first, but I'm gonna go in this totally different lane, different direction, which was like more for rock, dance, pop stuff, and Pink went more power pop, punk rock once she hooked up with Linda Perry from Four Non Blondes.
Yes. Yes, and Linda Perry has been a huge songwriter in the pop rock world for a while, ever since Four Non Blondes' big hit "What's Up." They played at the New Year's Eve Dick Clark Bash this year.
Oh, really?
Four Non Blondes once again. So there is talk of them doing something again, which would be really cool.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see that. Now, circle back to boy bands. I was wondering, did anybody in Canada kind of did what Nigel Martin Smith did in England with Take That and said, new kids are doing this. I know if I get five guys, put our own spin to it, I know we could do some damage and make noise.
We had some our own versions, absolutely. Some of them didn't have five members, some of them did. B44 was a three-member pop group that was quite successful here with the song Get Down. If you get down on me, I'll get down on you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's I don't know if you've heard B44, but that was a big one. We had the Moffats, who probably don't want to consider themselves a boy band, but they were kind of like in comparison to Hanson, where they were guys who were really talented and played instruments. So
Mm,
that was like our equivalent was the Moffats.
mm,
Um, there was VIP, TBTBT, Earth Tones. There was quite a few Canadian boy bands. Um, some of the names are escaping me right now, but we definitely had our own. We had this one that had some soap stars in it from Young and the Restless.
oh, wow.
um, their group, I forgot the name of them, but they had this song called "I'm So Into You." Big
Mm.
on Much Music. Yeah, we definitely had our own Canadian boy bands.
Yeah, I'm familiar with TBT quite a bit because when I had my college radio show in the record room, we had the 12-inch for One Track Mind. And looking at the
Mhm.
photo for the album cover, I'm like, yeah, they definitely paying attention to Another Bad Creation and Crisscross with the way that they were dressing. And then listening to the remix of One Track Mind, I'm like, oh, you were definitely listening to that man from Chicago who's now locked up, who shall remain nameless, and you know who I'm talking about, so I'm not even gonna say it. But it like I said earlier, it's just great to kind of hear another country spin on what's popular here in the US, and to see all those groups was just amazing. Then of course, I believe Bare Naked Ladies from Canada, right?
Yeah,
Yep. One week
they
was
are.
Big
They're
Smash.
definitely. I think they really did it on college radio because I think they were considered more of an alternative pop, in
Hmm.
the States. Although like we consider them just straight up like pop, I think.
Yeah,
But Bare Naked Ladies is huge in Canada, and I know they had a bit of traction in the US.
right.
Um, so yeah, I think in the 90s, especially after the explosion of Bryan Adams and Celine Dion and Alanis Morissette, that's when I think more Canadian artists got to cross the border and go international with their music.
Yeah, yeah. Got Deborah Cox and Tamia and Glenn Lewis, who great record, Don't
Mhm.
You Forget It. And I believe he's putting out new music. And just to hear the representation of all the artists coming out of Canada is a beautiful thing. And there's this one act that I felt should have had more success here in America. They had it with Faded, and it was kind of crazy, but I think they probably faded
Yes.
in the back after that. So let's talk about Soul Decision.
I knew I was forgetting somebody in that boy band list. You nailed it. Soul Decision.
Yeah, so
Now,
let's
Soul
talk about them for a
Decision
little
had
bit.
a few hits here, like ooh, it's kind of crazy. No one does it better than you. Trevor Guthrie, he's the main singer of that group, I would say. He also had a song later on with a popular Euro DJ. See, I'm not prepped for this,
No, 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 no
so
worries.
I'm missing names. It might be David Guetta. I can't remember.
Mm,
Um, but but yeah, Soul Decision did quite all right, and I think that they had the opportunity to tour with bands across Canada, like NSYNC. I'm
mhm.
pretty sure they opened for NSYNC.
Yeah, I think they did because I remember
So
seeing. Go ahead. I'm sorry, but
I
go
was just
ahead.
wondering how well known they were in the U.S.
Um, I remember seeing Faded heavy on MTV in rotation, and of course, with it being on TRL a lot, they opened up for NSYNC in the US on dates, and it was kind of crazy. Also got moderate play here in America because for me, their sound kind of was like a blend of Hall and Oates meets George Michael.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, no, actually, Trevor Guthrie was the singer in the Armin van Buuren song "This Is What It Feels Like."
Ah,
That's the one
nice,
I was looking for.
nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice. So tell me, how did Dope Nostalgia Podcast come to be?
2019, near the end of the year, I had been doing a lot of podcasting with friends on their shows, and I was getting comfortable with the idea of just having a chat with friends about music topics. And I thought if I ever wanted to do my own show, I would totally do it about obscure 90s artists, one hit wonders, people like that. What are they doing now? Kind of thing. That was the original idea. I started investing in getting all the equipment I needed, getting the web space and all that set up in late 2019 for early 2000 start to Dope Nostalgia. And the original idea was I was just going to talk with friends. Then the pandemic happened. So all these artists are not on tour anymore. Everyone's at home. And the idea crossed my mind this doesn't just have to be about one hit wonders. This could be about all kinds of 90s musicians that influenced me and others. And maybe I can reach out to them because nobody's doing anything right now. And I did that and I had success with it. A lot of the people I reached out to agreed to be guests on the show, and I'd have amazing conversations with them about not only what they were doing in the 90s, but what they're doing now. Because everybody wants to like discuss as an artist, you want to talk about what you're doing now. You want people to know this is what I'm up to, and I want you guys, my fan base and new fans, to be a part of it. So we do both of those things on Dope Nostalgia. And like I said, I've been really successful ever since being able to contact artists, get them on the show. If I can't get a hold of them, that's okay. If they don't want to be on the show, that's okay too. We'll end up having a discussion about that artist because I still want to make an episode about them. And then I'll get somebody who's either very knowledgeable about them to be on the show with me and talk, or people like yourself, other podcasters and people doing, the same kind of content where we can go back and forth on it. Um, and Dope Nostalgia has been around now for 6 years this month. And in fact, it's this week is going to be the 6 year anniversary. So I'm just so happy doing it. I don't get tired of it. I love every minute of it. And the opportunities it's given me are just lifelong dreams.
Yeah,
So I'm really happy to be doing this. And I'm happy to watch the show steadily grow.
nice, nice. Run down some of the people who you had on the show.
Okay. Naughty by nature. Alana Miles, Sass Jordan. A lot of these people are Canadian celebrities too, right? Prozac. Um, can we pause for 1 second? I didn't get the list out.
Yeah, sure. Go.
So some of the people also Two Unlimited, 5440, 4 p.m., Ace of Base, All for One, Tasman Archer, Stevie B. Like it's just been insane. Like I can't even begin to tell you. Biff Naked, she's big in Canada. She's been on the show. Um, yeah, like it's been beyond my wildest dreams. And there's dreams of people who I still want to talk to. Um, obviously, a new kid on the block being one of them.
Oh, oh, really?
but but it's growing. Yeah, there's dreams. Like I said, he's Donnie would be like my bucket list guest
Okay.
for
Yeah.
sure. Or
Yeah.
Paula Abdul is somebody I've always wanted to talk to as well.
Okay, so those are your white whales.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I'd go as far as saying John Bon Jovi too.
Yeah. Ooh, that would be a big get too. So, all those heavy hitters that you mentioned that you've interviewed on the show, it's definitely great and it
Hmm.
shows the power of your podcast and that, they respect what you do and love what you do too.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, exactly. You had the opportunity to interview Jeremy Jordan, which was a wonderful interview. And that was one that I had on my list too that I would have liked to get to. Some of them are very hard to find now. Some people don't want to be in the music business anymore, they're over it. So I can understand and respect their feelings on not being wanting to do any kind of a nostalgia podcast. Totally
Mhm.
fair.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't do a show about them, right?
Yeah, that's a nice little workaround. You're gonna get some yeses, you're gonna get some nos, but
Mhm.
the main thing is that you do it out of love and you're not gonna badger, you're not gonna pester. If they respectfully decline, you respect their wishes and you go on about your day.
And we keep the show positive. Like I like to talk about positive things. There have been times where I may have been a bit negative in regards to an artist that I may not have any respect for, aka Kid Rock.
Hmm.
But that's probably been like the only person I've really went off on. Other
Hmm.
than that, it's always been about love. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we focus on. Dope nostalgia and beyond the album cover, the positivity. We're not all about clickbait, kicking people while they're down, because at the end of the day, these are people. The only difference is that their careers are a little bit more in the public spotlight than you or I.
Yes, exactly. They're people first and foremost, just like us, and they have feelings and things that hurt them as well as give them joy. And I mean, like, I've learned a lot about the things that people went through with their record companies, being
Yeah,
treated like a commodity, being treated like a loan and being dropped for no reason, finding out that they owe the company a bunch of money that they didn't see coming, things like that. I've learned a
yeah.
lot about that being a problem back in the day and probably still is a problem, but hey, people don't need the record company as much as they used to anymore, do they?
No, and because of technology, you can cut the middleman out, go direct to the consumer. So, how do you think social media has changed the way we consume music and the fan experience?
Exactly. Exactly. And if you already have an established fan base, you can go and work with them directly.
Hmm.
You don't have to have the middleman anymore. So
No,
so that's a good thing for a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely is a good thing. And one last thing I want to get you out on before we wrap. Any episodes upcoming that you're working on that you can tell us about?
Ooh. Okay, well, recent ones that came out that I was very excited about doing was the Arsenio Hall show. Talking with another podcast about Arsenio Hall show, the 80s and 90s uncensored podcast, and me, because that show brought me a lot of the music I listened to, which is something I should have mentioned earlier. We did have Arsenio Hall in syndication in Canada, so I did get to watch that, and a lot of R&B and hip hop artists that I loved were because of that show.
Nice, nice,
So that was a big episode for me.
nice.
Um,
Real
yeah,
quickly,
we got.
real quick. Did Soul Train ever make his way in Canada or no?
I did not see Soul Train. It wouldn't have been. We had Solid Gold, which was
Mm,
different, and before that, I think. I think. See, I can't talk like I know because I don't. But I don't think we had Soul Train. At least not on our regular stations. Maybe on a cable station
okay,
or a satellite station.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But
Yeah.
let me look here quick. What do recordings I have coming up? I have members of the Cardigans on the show coming up. I have Sixpence None the Richer.
Ooh,
Um, of course, next week coming up is my episode with you about I'll Be Sure. That's coming out right away. So yeah, there lots of good stuff on the way, and some
yeah.
things that I will surprise people with too.
All right. How can people
Yeah.
find it?
dopenostalgia.com. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere you stream your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube as well as Instagram, dope underscore nostalgia. The YouTube channel is growing a lot. It's over 1.8 million views now. So it's been awesome.
Cool.
I'm so happy to meet new fans and get new listeners involved. So you guys can always shoot me a message on Instagram and tell me what you want to see on the show, and we'll make it happen.
All right. And
Yeah.
any shout outs you want to give?
Oh, definitely. First of all, you're amazing. I love your interviews and how knowledgeable you are about music and all the podcasters that I've done episodes with, made new friends. It's super cool. Shout out to all my New Kids on the Block girls in the US and international. Um, yeah, love you guys.
Great, great, great. And you can catch the podcast wherever you stream and on YouTube at youtube.com/slash beyond the album cover. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big thank you, round of applause for my girl Naomi from the Dope Nostalgia Podcast for coming on. Naomi, thank you for coming on, and we'll definitely do it again soon. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jarrell. You're the best.
Not a problem. All right.